Before I start, I pretend I'm someone of the lost and found department, but I would like to tell that to Professor Azakir that your tablet and wallet have been found. So please, at the desk you will find your tablet and wallet. Thank you. So, thank you and welcome to the 5th World Conference on Research Integrity. On behalf of the Royal Academy of Arts and Sciences, who is one of the conference sponsors, it is a pleasure to meet all of you here to discuss the important theme of research integrity, and most notably, transparency and accountability, some of the most important issues researchers are facing in today's democratic societies. We are very proud to host this conference here in the city of Amsterdam at the Vrije Universiteit, and it's a great honor to welcome so many engaged academics representing a global community, a community that is concerned about the position of science and research in a turbulent world. Let me try to provide a brief warm-up for the discussions that no doubt will take place during the breakout sessions over the next couple of days. There we go. A famous American dictum of naval intelligence goes, "In God we trust, all others we monitor." And that dictum has been repurposed in many different contexts and appropriated by a number of companies and agencies, including Google and the NSA, the American National Security Agency. At the end of my talk, I will propose to adapt an alternative to this dictum, which I will gradually transform into, "In researchers we trust. That is why we invite everyone to monitor." Now, on April 22nd, here in Amsterdam and in Washington and 600 other cities around the world, concerned academics took to the streets to march for science. It's not a very common thing for researchers to do, to take their concerns to the streets. On the contrary, most of us are very reticent when it comes to expressing their worries about the position of their profession. Particularly because this march was not just a demonstration for better pay or for more funding. There was clearly a deeper concern. A concern that the basic trust in science and the position of independent researchers appears to be eroding. In various parts of the world, we have seen a changing political climate in which academic researchers are approached with distrust. Vocal groups challenge experts and dismiss scientific results, equaling solid evidence based on years of careful, methodologically sound inquiries into alternative facts or casual observations. In spite of an overwhelming amount of scientific evidence disproving the relationship between autism and vaccination, there are a number of government officials who openly doubt the validity of such evidence. The new EPA director in the US has stated that researchers, and I quote, "do not agree on the facts supporting climate change," unquote. And despite 98% of experts agreeing on melting ice caps as signs of global warming, a small minority of climate change deniers has managed to dominate the debate in various parts of the public sphere. Academics who have studied problems in their area of expertise for many years are understandably dismayed when the solid results of their thorough efforts are dismissed as trivial or as inconclusive by politicians, especially those politicians whose prime goal is to plant the seeds of doubt when evidence doesn't fit their point of view. And in a digital society where citizens can click on the truths they want, scientific validity tends to disappear quickly from the radar of public concern. And yet, despite the signs of an eroding trust that caused researchers to take their concern to the streets on April 22nd, we need to ask how valid this perception really is. How much does the public actually trust professional researchers? Well, it's not so bad as you might think, at least here in Europe. A recent British study compares the various professions in terms of how much they are trusted to tell the truth. As you can tell from this graph, doctors, teachers, judges, and scientists are the professions most trusted, with percentages between 79 and 89. These rates are reassuring, even more so if we compare them to other professions, which you see down below. And way down below this list, you can find that journalists, government ministers, and politicians are among the trusted least when it comes to telling the truth, as they have rates that vary between 15 and 21%. By the way, the Dutch numbers roughly correspond to the British numbers, so there's only minor differences between the two. So the first part of my new dictum should indeed be in researchers we trust. But the next question is, why can we trust them and who is doing the monitoring? When it comes to researchers, there's a lineup of professionals who perform public scrutiny on behalf of the people. First of all, there are government officials in charge of controlling and monitoring the efficient spending of tax money, as well as the effective choice of research teams. Second, elected politicians tend to monitor government officials who control researchers while pursuing their own political goals. And third, there are journalists who monitor both research and government policies and politics, and, to make it even more complicated, they also inform the general public of researchers' findings. Now, the two last slides combined add up to an interesting observation. While scientific researchers are amongst the most highly trusted professional groups in society, they are also one of the most scrutinized groups, monitored by government officials, politicians, and journalists. But even if the latter professions are trusted less by the public, I would still argue that it may be because of this intense monitoring that academic researchers end up high in the trust rankings. Yes, I admit, we researchers often voice complaints about too much government control, too much political meddling, and too little serious media coverage. And yet, I will argue that this monitoring by all these professionals, starting, of course, with researchers' intense and careful self-monitoring, is extremely important when it comes to anchoring trust. If science would not be monitored, trust would erode rapidly. And the most important remedies against an erosion of trust all start with the adjective open. Open, independent institutions, open procedures, and open debates. Let me illustrate each of these open proposals. First, let's look at institutions. For over a century, science and research have been anchored in public institutions, not just universities, but also research centers and labs, from which researchers have started to collaborate and compete across the globe. These institutions are ideally independent and autonomous, both financially and ideologically. If institutions are controlled directly by state or market players, we may have reasonable doubts as to their published results. But over the course of centuries, public and private institution builders have constructed a powerful set of means to arbitrate their various claims to truth. University research laboratories and academic organizations provide a common set of measures and assessments upon which they agree. And Vinat has just illustrated that, I think, very beautifully. Depending on the discipline, protocols have been put into place for gathering data, for doing testing, double-blind testing sometimes, for weighing evidence and refuting outcomes. National ethics committees and research integrity boards have been set up to monitor academic institutions. And researchers working across the borders in international teams help guard the independency of institutions. Secondly, we need to point at open procedures. In an open academic climate, research centers and universities open up their methodologies and results. Scientific results need to live up to standards set by an international community of experts, and they should be challenged in the marketplace of ideas. Indeed, a rational discourse about scientific evidence doesn't always lead to a 100% agreement on the interpretation of facts. Needless to say, in this community, there are significant differences between the various disciplines in how they gather data, how they define a scientific problem, and how they analyze and judge evidence. The process of research, of evidence building, of argumentation, deliberation, acceptance, or rejection should be a rigorous process, relentless and fair, but always open to debate. Peer review is an important part of this open procedure. Current discussions about reproducibility and open data show how researchers struggle with the new demands of transparency and accountability in an open and digital society. I need to make at this point one important caveat. Open procedures of data may also have negative side effects, such as deliberately produced wrong secondary analysis that costs lots of energy to rebut. In some cases, openness must of course yield to security or privacy, for instance, when interviewed subjects are at risk of being prosecuted in their own country, or in the case of highly sensitive information. And yet, in spite of justified restrictions, researchers always need to be accountable within the organized systems of control. Finally, besides open institutions and open procedures, we should welcome open debates at any level, not just other academics and experts, but also politicians, media professionals, and the public at large. Open debates are perhaps the most crucial condition for anchoring trust. Some academics insist that bringing more facts to the table will automatically result in more trust. However, particularly in the debate on climate change and global warming, we have seen how presenting more evidence fails to convince more people and, contrary to one's intuition, even appears to fuel public controversy. Providing more facts and more evidence, however truthful, may run counter to the desired strategic effect of helping a lay audience to understand a complex scientific topic. What may help, though, is to bring the tools of inquiry and argumentative discussion into every level of the public sphere, from elementary school classrooms to college halls, and from newspapers to parliament. Scientists are understandably driven by an urge to expose one's virtuosity and an eagerness to score. But a public debate may be served better by an approach that is committed to unveiling truth's complexity and explaining the processes and standards that we use. Journalists could help researchers to achieve this kind of openness, and as a positive side effect, we can empower citizens by helping them understand how science works. Such an approach is indeed an invitation to monitor, to keep the expert discussion transparent at all levels, and to earn a license to operate as academics. So this is why I have come to create an alternative dictum to the old naval intelligence joke. In researchers we trust, that is why we invite everyone to monitor. That could be our new maxim. Researchers themselves are held responsible for various kinds of self-monitoring to weed out fraud and sloppiness. And I think it's these rigorous standards that keep us high in the ranks of trusted professionals. But self-monitoring is not enough to guarantee this position. Other professionals should be invited to peer into scientific processes, to probe results, and to witness exchanges between experts. Opening up research so all others can monitor may be the best recipe for a trustworthy, accountable, and responsible profession. And that is why I am proud and happy to welcome so many researchers, over 800, to this 5th World Conference on Research Integrity. It is here in the conference sessions that will take place over the next 3 days that we engage in monitoring and self-monitoring. I would like to express my gratitude to the Rector and the Board of the Vrije Universiteit for hosting such an important conference. And particularly, I would like to thank Professor Lex Bouter, who is not only himself an expert in the field of research integrity, but who is also an incredibly energetic organizer. His efforts and his leadership qualities have been crucial to the success of this conference, and on behalf of the Academy, I extend my deepest gratitude to Lex. I wish all of you an illuminating and inspiring conference. Thank you very much.